super excited today to welcome my friend Bill Wilson. Bill is the founder and CEO of Pace Pricing, a consulting and coaching firm for B2B SaaS companies. He's a 3-time founder with over 20 years of experience who has guided companies through exits, growth stages, and profitable monetization strategies. Bill's advised hundreds of SaaS teams, partnering with accelerators, PE, and pricing firms. Now, he shares his expertise to help others stop guessing, make data-driven decisions, and build scalable pricing models.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, let's just jump right in. So tell me, Bill, how did you become the founder of Pace Pricing?
Yeah, it's an interesting story, or at least I think it is. The short story is that I had a SaaS company and we were acquired. And after that, I wasn't really sure what to do. And my SaaS company was based around a quoting tool for B2B SaaS companies. So it was very, very focused on pricing. And I found a lot of people would ask me questions about pricing. Mm-hmm. And so I started coaching for another coaching firm, SaaS Academy, was often asked to coach on pricing questions. And so that continued, and it was lovely. It was fantastic. I absolutely loved it. It scratches an itch for me. I am a software developer, is where I come from. I have a software development background, but I've been leading companies since 2007. So I'm highly technical, but I also like working with people and having really meaningful conversations. And that's sort of how it all came about. And so from there, I kept getting asked more and more if I could help people deeper and deeper. And that's when I decided I probably really should build a company around this. And so since 2021 or so, I formed the company, but really since in the last year or so is when we've been really digging in and doing some really heavy monetization work. So there you go. That's the story.
In the early days, kind of before you officially started the company, what types of questions were they asking? And you don't need to say the exact question, but more so was it more overall, how do I even start to think about pricing, Bill? Was it like that?
Sometimes it was, the question I would get most often when I was selling, working a SaaS company, when I was selling to CROs, and people were kind of almost like a sideways look, and they'd be like, do you think our pricing's any good? Do you think it's okay? Is our pricing good? You see lots of pricing. What do you think? It's almost like there's a little hesitancy around whether they think their pricing is working or not, or is it good? And so that was the first key. And then after that was, look, we haven't changed our pricing in forever, and we really don't know what to do, and we don't know how to do it. And people are the biggest thing that holds people back is just fear. Mm-hmm. And that's the big thing. So all the questions kind of centered around an anxiety of, we don't know what to do, and we don't know what it will mean for our business if we do something. And so that was sort of the big unlock.
Got it. Okay, now let's go back. Let's rewind the clock and tell me who Bill was back in the day. As a kid, what were you doing, Bill? What were you doing for fun? What did your parents do for a living? And just what do you think were some of the pivotal moments or influences that you think maybe sparked your desire to even be an entrepreneur?
Sure, absolutely. So I grew up in Canada, and my father was in the National Park Service equivalent called Parks Canada. And we moved around every couple of years. So I've lived all over Canada, and it's primarily been in national parks. Mm-hmm. And so that was quite an experience. So every 2 years, you sort of pick up everything you have and you move to a new place. And as a small child, starting over in new schools all the time was always a challenge. And so, what did I do for fun? I spent most of my time defending myself from bullies. No, it was not really that way. It just depends on where we lived. I lived on the west coast of Vancouver Island for a while, and that was absolutely amazing. We lived on the beach. That was what else can you do? So what I did all day was on the beach.
Wow.
And then I lived on the east coast of Nova Scotia, Cape Breton Island, and at the National Historic Site called Louisbourg. And so that was sort of my childhood. And then settled in and around the Halifax area in Nova Scotia. And I went to high school here, and I went to university here. Now, at that time, when I was going through high school, it was a pivotal moment for me. And that was, I wasn't the best student, generally. And I was in Canada, we have this thing where you're taking either university preparatory courses or you're taking general courses. Mm-hmm. And I was taking university preparatory courses because, of course, I had to go to university. My dad went to university. I have to go to university. It was just baked in. And I had this math teacher tell me after grade 10, he basically said to me, don't bother. He said, don't bother taking a university prep course. You're just not going to make it. And so looking back on it, at the time, I was like, screw you, I'm doing it. Right. But looking back on it, that's what he was counting on. Because he knew that I probably wasn't just applying myself. So anyway, fast forward a few years, I have a
It was a reverse psychology point.
Reverse psychology, totally, yeah. And I fell for it hard. And so fast forward, a few years, and I have a master's degree. So that's how that happened. And so I was a master's degree focused on computer science as well. And that's when I got into software development. And I absolutely loved it. I love being able to create things from thin air. It's pretty fascinating to be able to sit at a keyboard and, start coding and create something useful. And so I loved building things. I loved building product. And I was doing that for a lot of other companies for a long time. And I decided in 2007 that I didn't really want to do it for everybody else anymore. And I wanted to do it for myself, kind of. And that's when I started my first company. And within 2 years, all the mobile stuff hit. iPhone, was available. You could write apps for it. And the App Store launched. And there was this amazing frenzy. And I really wanted to get in on it. So I pivoted the company to basically be a mobile app development and design studio. And that company still exists. It's going strong as far as I know. I sold it in 2021, but I had it for 13 years. And it was awesome. We got to build so many amazing products for people and companies. And so that was really great. So I got to build product again. I got to keep working on product, which is great. And so that's sort of the fascination part with the product and with building things. And that's sort of what led me to building a SaaS product. Because I wanted to.
Were either of your parents entrepreneurs?
Nope, my dad was not an entrepreneur. My mom was not an entrepreneur. But I will say, when I was very young, I do have memories of going door to door in my neighborhood trying to sell my toys. I do have memories of that, and I think it usually surrounded a move. I think we're moving, and it's like, go get rid of your stuff, and I would go and sell things. I mean, I think that was sort of the first time. But I also forgot one thing. When I was 18, I started a web design company. And that was in 1996 or something. I don't know, around then. So it was like really early. It was really early. And so if I look back on it, I've always kind of had this bend. And for some reason, it was probably like 1994 or something. But yeah, for some reason, I didn't really pursue it right away. I went the other way and I started building things for other people. But everything comes full circle. So.
Totally. You can't stay away from it. One of the common stories or little stories that I hear so many times on the podcast is the story of the first time someone got on a computer and created something, even if it was just that hello world popping up.
Sure.
And it's just so interesting to me. The story is so the same. Like, it's almost word for word that, oh my God, I can make whatever I want. This just like, it's like, and it's so interesting to think of how it allows this creativity, but with the analytical math component of it. So it's like, if I were to be interviewing, let's say painters instead, and how that story would be similar, but still quite different in terms of them the first time they picked up a paintbrush, and how painting, although absolutely creative, 100%, doesn't really have so much usually of the analytical engineering component to it. But the creation on the computer has that creative and the analytical components to it. And it just always makes me kind of smile when I think about that. And you mentioned it a little bit. It was, and also the funny thing is you and I have in common. My first business was when I was 7. I found these teddy bear postcards at this little store that was very popular for the kids. And I said, oh my God, I can sell these. So I was going door to door selling my teddy bear postcards just to, the adults in the neighborhood.
I love it.
Why do they want the teddy bear postcards? And my next business, we don't have to go into that, but my next business was also some little rinky-dink product that was selling to adults. But I had figured out between 7 and 10 that there was something about that I could literally sell whatever I wanted to adults. And they were going to buy it from me because I was a kid.
Right.
And anyway, so I just love the stories in this podcast because we don't talk, and this is not something I normally say, but just a side note that in this podcast we really don't talk that much about business. I mean, it's sprinkled in here and there. We talk about the technical parts of business and things like that, but this podcast is really about understanding the journey of becoming an entrepreneur and the the hurdles and the challenges and the wins and the transformation of entrepreneur. What causes people to become an entrepreneur? And if everybody's story, even though they're different, there's also a lot of like buckets that, you've got people who become an entrepreneur because they just happened upon this problem that they had themselves. They realized they needed to solve the problem. They found a solution and they realized that other people had the same problem as them. So let me sell this solution to solve this problem that everybody else has like me. Or, they were like us and learned at a very young age that that they had some interest in just creating and the interaction with people of trading something that they thought was valuable to another person. It's just so interesting to me. But anyway, so let's talk a little bit about pricing. So what are some common mistakes early stage and growth stage SaaS companies make in their pricing strategies, and how can they avoid these pitfalls? And they could be either common mistakes that are kind of like new to the industry based on all of the changes that we're seeing in the industry, or it could just be like tried and true. It's like, whoever you are, whatever kind of business it is, but particularly in SaaS, everybody has this problem, and it's like they have to overcome it and figure it out.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I'll start with early stage. So early stage, I find that SaaS companies tend to over-engineer their pricing a little too much. And so what they do is they go to market and they see their competitors or their possible competitors, or they look at the big companies and they see they're like either all good, better, best, or good, better, best with add-ons, or core and more, or some other packaging structure, and they think they need to copy that. Mm-hmm. And at that stage, when you're first starting out and you're getting your first customers, you don't know what you don't know. And so if you're solving a problem, solve it completely, put it all together in one package and sell it for a price. Now, the other mistake is that sometimes they undercut themselves and they just say, oh, I just want users. I just want free. I'm going to give it away for free. I think it's really important to open your wallet early. So it has to actually be priced. It can't just be given away, and it needs to be meaningful. And so those are the big ones. And then I guess the other one at that stage too, if you are going all in one, is not really identifying what the big value metric is. And so if you don't know, that's fine. Charge a flat fee for it and go for it. Get people in the door and start seeing what works. And then people will just default to per user. And I think this is a bit of handcuffs. And I think don't do that until you really know that adding more people to your product adds more value. And if it doesn't, don't sell per user. Like if you're charging for access, it has to be something really good on the other side that everybody needs and really, really will get tons of value out of. So you see that a lot in sales type software, right? So those are the big ones at the early stage. And at growth stage, I would say some of the big things are just not like setting it and forgetting it. Like they'll set their prices, and not even their prices, their packaging, right? How they sell. They'll set that up kind of once. They might feel like it's not working, but they won't touch it. Like, as we said before, it's all fear. They're a little scared of what is going to happen, and they're scared of their competition. They're scared of their customer string. They're scared of not being able to close new deals. So like all three of the terrible things that could happen in your business, and they're scared of those. And so they don't touch it, or they just don't know who's responsible for it, or it just feels like it's too much work. So the lucky few who do decide to change their pricing and actually reap the reward often only do it in one direction. And that's the other big mistake. So they only do it for new customers, and they just go, yeah, let's just grandfather everybody else in. And that's a big mistake, because the real money in a price increase and a price change is with your existing customers. Mm-hmm. You have far more of those, or at least you should, of those than you do have customers coming in the door. And so that's where the real lift is going to come from. Yes, it takes work. Yes, it's difficult, but that is the work that needs to be done.
So let's just touch on one of the points you made here. You were talking about the dangers of user seat pricing as like the default strategy. So what were you suggesting instead? So if you're a new SaaS, what should your considerations be to decide specifically? What are some questions you could ask yourself to decide, should this be per seat, or should this be a credit? Should this be hybrid? Something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think at the early stage, you're really trying to figure out like what value do we deliver to the customer, and how do we measure it? And so really it's about value metrics and pricing metrics. So if you can find a pricing metric that aligns with your customer, the value that the customer gets is reasonably predictable to them and feels fair and familiar, like it's something they're used to, then you probably have a pretty good handle on what to charge by. So your pricing metric is the thing, the unit of measure that you use to scale your product. And so a lot of people, the very first thing you have to do in a product is add people to it. And so that's kind of where we stop. And we go, cool, we'll just charge every time we add a person. And then after that, they get to value. But somewhere along the line, that will start to diverge. It will start to, the value connection of adding all these users will start to change. I won't feel like it's fair anymore because I'm like, well, I just want my admin to come in and do this thing. I just need my executive assistant in. Oh, I just need this person. Oh, we just need these people. They don't really do any of the work. They just need to monitor it. And all of a sudden, why do I have to pay it for a full price seat? Those are all the kinds of objections you'll get knowing that you have a bit of a value disconnect on charging per user. And so I want to avoid that if I can from the beginning by trying to identify something more useful that we can charge by. So what I'm suggesting, I guess, is try and find a pricing metric that really, really works well. And I'm talking like early stage. If you can really quantify the value, then great, right? If you run marketing campaigns, maybe you charge per marketing campaign or something like that. But if you really, truly don't know yet how the value is going to show up, maybe you just charge a flat fee for it and maybe put a limit on the number of users or something if you want to get comfortable with it. But like try and get people in paying you money and seeing where the value is and seeing how they extract it. So I think the default shouldn't, I guess what I'm trying to say is like, if users is the thing, great. The questions you need to ask yourself are, will adding a user to the system add more value for the customer? And that you often see that in things like CRMs and Salesforce, like stuff like that. Makes a lot of sense. The more salespeople I add, the more value they're going to bring to the company. Okay, cool. And they run their entire job is run on Salesforce. But maybe that's not the case, right? Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's a product that delivers data from one place to another. Well, charging per seat there kind of doesn't make a lot of sense.
Right. It would be
set up
or
integrate. It's set up. Yeah, integrations, sources, all that kind of stuff. So try and get tighter to the value. And I think that's the biggest piece that I would say. And that goes all the way. That goes from the very earliest stage all the way up to the most mature stage. We really need to identify the things that we can charge by, and it doesn't necessarily have to be just one. And so as you get more mature, you might be able to find other value metrics, other pricing metrics that make a lot of sense. And that's when you really truly do get into hybrid models. And that's where you'll get to the holy land or the promised land of net revenue retention being well above 100% is kind of where we want to be.
Well, we'll definitely dive in more into the hybrid models, but thank you. Thank you for giving the examples because I just wanted to make sure that everybody that listens to the episode really understands like what the examples are of how you can take a vertical or a certain type of product and identify what is the point of value, which sounds like would also be the same unit of metric that you would associate with a point of activation or these types of things. Like what is the activity or the unit that is being produced that is why they're using it in the first place? Like what are they trying to do here? They're trying to generate more deals. Are they trying to manage all their contacts? What are they trying to do? So you've discussed a little bit about the hybrid pricing model. So let's talk about how the hybrid models benefit the customer. Because I think you've already kind of talked a little bit, but we'll explore more about how the hybrid models benefit the SaaS companies. But what's in it for the customer? That's okay. Okay. So my question is, so we've already talked about the hybrid pricing models a little bit, but let's talk about how hybrid pricing models benefit the customers and benefit or juxtapose that benefit with the company.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it really comes down to the value that the customer gets from the product. And we want to associate that as closely as possible with the pricing metric. If we can do those things, then a customer is probably only going to pay for what they use at some level. Like there's definitely you're paying for feature sets and other things, like you're paying for the capability. You're paying for capability, but you're also paying for that the more you use, the more I pay thing. Now that's sometimes seen as a negative, but the flip side is that if you have someone that is, say, using it a ton, like they're just in it every day, all day, building videos or something, whatever it happens to be, they're getting a lot more value than, say, someone like me who comes in once a week and maybe does a short video. So if the price was set in such a way that it was accessible to both of us, but the person who uses it the most or more is happy to pay for those, I will happily pay for chunks of videos if I get more of the thing I want because the entry price is set in such a way that it feels good. So customers generally will feel like, I don't want to have to deal with the up and down of it all. Like I don't want to have to deal with the variability. I want to know how much I'm paying. And so I think And I think that's where hybrid models can get interesting, because what you can do is you can have an entitlement inside your package. So for example, you have a base offer, it includes 100 videos. Well, the company, if they've done it correctly, they've done the math, they realize most of their customers probably only do maximum 100 videos a month. And so they've set it at that number, at 100. Anybody who goes over that, they're going to pay a little bit more, but the majority of their customers aren't going to be paying anything. And then the ones who are using it a ton are probably know they're using it a ton and are willing to pay more for it. Now, it depends on the type of customer. If you're selling B2C, it's a little harder because that's just not something that people like. If you can cast your mind back to the cell phone days when we charge per minute, nobody really liked that as a consumer. So it's a little different at that level. But on the B2B level, it's about the usage side of it. So how does it benefit the customer? If it's done well, you have the confidence that you're only paying for what you use.
Okay.
And then there are ways to make it predictable, I guess, is the other piece.
Meet Brandy, your all-in-one content creation sidekick designed to make creating and managing your brand's content effortless. Let me show you how it works. Got a team? Bring them in. With Brandy, everyone can pitch in to create content that clicks. Managing multiple brands? Easily switch between profiles so you're always ready for the next project. The Brand Voice Analyzer ensures your content always sounds like you. Stuck on where to start? Check out our handy prompt templates. They're like creative jumpstarts to get things moving. Every edit, every version saved. With content revision history, nothing gets lost, and you can always pick up right where you left off. Everything your brand needs, it's all right here in your brand asset library. Stay organized like a pro with custom folders for every project. No more hunting for that one file. Brandy does too, and is ready to help you connect. Or in any language, really. Speak to your audience in the words they know best. Need ideas or have questions? Just ask Brandy. Save time with custom snippets. Your most used phrases, always handy when you need them. Keep your notes, links, and ideas in one spot, so you're never hunting for that one piece of inspiration. Get personalized content tips and SEO strategies to help your brand stand out online. Join Brandy today and make your content creation smarter, faster, and better. Let's create something amazing.
So let's give an example again, just so everybody's clear. Give me an example of what a good hybrid pricing model would be. You can pick any industry, just like how this setup works.
Yeah, for sure. So a good hybrid model is going to do two things. One is going to support lateral expansion. So basically people who come in and say in a good, better, best model, they go from left to right as they upgrade. So that's lateral expansion. And then vertical expansion would be kind of like some kind of usage element, perhaps, or add-ons or something else. And okay, so a great hybrid model is going to have two things. It's going to have lateral expansion. So basically moving from left to right, saying like a good, better, best. User will sort of start at the starter package and then they'll see that they need more capability and they'll move up to the next package is usually how that goes. If you add in an element of vertical expansion, so basically someone lands in a package that they're in, say it's like the starter or the middle tier or something there. They may not need all the sophistication of the other packages, but they still might have a usage element that can go up and down. And so that's the idea is you want to install another pricing metric there so that you can capture more revenue from the customers you already have. And that's really the point. So let's take a video recording software. Since we're recording with Riverside, let's take a video recording side. They have their base package, which is like base recording, it gives you 100 minutes of recording and that's it. The next package up gives you, 1,000 minutes of recording and a whole bunch of other features that maybe someone who's doing a lot of video needs. Well, I might just go in this one. Look, I just do basic videos and I do a bunch of them, but they're really short. This is fine for me. But periodically I do more than 100 minutes. And so I'm going to capture, or maybe it's videos. It's not even minutes. Maybe it's
4K videos.
Maybe, or whatever. Yeah. Something like
we use 4K videos and you have to switch something on to turn on 4K videos.
Exactly. And you pay for that sort of extra, capability. So that's one way. And the other way is usage. So you can pay for more capability, you can pay for usage. So paying for capability in a vertical model would be having add-ons on packages. Right. So it's like I can buy a piece of the functionality that might be included in higher plans, but I only need that one thing. And so I'll buy it. And so that's vertical expansion that way. And the other one would be like through some kind of metered usage. Yeah. So that would be, if that makes sense, I think that's kind of how you do it. So basically what you want to do is you want to meet your customer where they are. So if they're fine in the package they're in and they don't need to upgrade or move left to right, that's fine. And that should be okay. And it should still be good business for you. But our jobs as SaaS companies is to create value. And then our only job is to capture that value. And we do that through exchange of money, And so we need to sell to our existing customers. That's really the motion you got to create. And I see so many people have a unidimensional model. They'll have exactly one approach, right? It's, they sell per user, that's it. Or they charge a transaction fee on top of something, and that's their only way of making money. You have no choice at that point but to, have just to work with that one thing and try and make all your dreams come true. And that's really hard. But if you had other levers that you could pull, you can actually start to create offers and packages that make a lot more sense and can give you the upside that you need to drive the business forward. And I think that's the thing that a lot of companies miss.
Yes. Yes. So let's talk about leveraging data to get to these pricing changes or decisions. What are some tools or frameworks or formulas that you recommend for the process of deciding on SaaS pricing?
Got it. So pricing is kind of at the intersection of a lot of things in a SaaS company. It's at the intersection of the product, the positioning, sales, customer success. All these things kind of feed into it. But the three big ones I think of are product and positioning, and pricing kind of go hand in hand. And so one of the first tools I really like to use is jobs to be done. I really like getting inside the mind of the segment that you're behind. What is the job they're hiring you to get done? Because if we can figure that out, we can do a lot of great packaging work. And a lot of people will say, well, I know the job to be done. This is the problem we solve. I'm like, well, that's not exactly a job to be done. A job to be done exists without your software. It's something that people are trying to achieve, and they're willing to hire someone for something or pay money some way to solve that problem. So it's not just a problem. It's a problem people are willing to spend money on to solve. So that's why it's a job. And so I like those because oftentimes you can uncover really the root of what people value. And if you can really uncover that root, then you can start to line up your features around that job to be done, which is so much easier than going, well, we have to have a good, better, best. And what should we put in the main? But we want to make it, small enough that they upgrade and all this other stuff. But if you just look at the first job to be done and you solve that really well, but just the things you have to use to solve that, and maybe you can put limits to create positive friction, but that's the first thing you need to do. So that's one of my favorite tools to use in pricing. I think it's a bit of an unlock. Honestly, if more people did that, I think they would have much better packaging, and the packaging would resonate with their customer a lot better. So the other one is, how do you evaluate a value metric? How do I know if this value metric is going to be the right one? And I've got a framework I call the HOPE framework that allows us to evaluate metrics. It has 6 dimensions, or 6 variables basically in 2 dimensions. So it's basically, what is the customer side and what is our business side? And so from a customer side, it needs to really line up with the value they deliver, right? So it needs to be very tightly associated with that. It needs to be fair and familiar. So it needs to be something they're already familiar with and seems fair, or something they're already measuring in their business, or something along those lines. And it needs to be predictable, or at least reasonably predictable. So that's the first thing. So you measure that. I do it on a score of 1 to 5, right? Just like, so I have relative scores against each other. They don't actually have an empirical meaning. They're just relative to each other. And then for the business side, so that's us, can we track it, right? Are we able to track it well? In our software? Is it, does it scale with our business, right? And can we reasonably bill for it? Like, do we have the operational infrastructure and the things that we can do to actually bill for this thing? Does that make sense? And so those three variables across those 2 dimensions will let you plot it in a 2x2 matrix. And I use a 2x2 matrix to sort of illustrate where the value metrics can land. And without getting into too many details, like basically
Quartile.
Yeah, you get your upper right-hand corner, which is always the happy place. That's your optimal pricing metrics. And then you have hard pricing metrics to the left of that. Down below, you have, what we trash land, but I call them problematic metrics. The lower left-hand corner is always the garbage. And then the right-hand corner, where it's basically the customer doesn't see all the value, but it's really good for us as a business. Those sometimes can be really good secondary metrics, and I call those edge metrics. So they're like just on the edge of being useful. So anyway, I've got a framework for that. Maybe we can put it in the show notes. Yeah.
Optimized.
Yeah. It's hard, optimal, problematic,
and edge. Yes. Yeah. Got it. The HOPE framework. I love that. Okay. So are there any tools that, like, when I say tools as well, I'm also thinking, like, are there any apps or anything that you think are helpful? Let's talk about let's talk about payment processors, because I know a lot of SaaS companies are using Stripe or something to deliver or manage the subscriptions and the payments. And the way the pricing is set up has to not only be something that can be tracked in the software, but also something that has to be able to be identified or separated out in the payment processor, so that when that job happens or that unit is purchased or used or what have you, that they're billed accordingly. Do you have a favorite payment processor or tool that goes on top of a payment processor, or something that you think really are good tools to use for people who want to leverage hybrid pricing? Like, what are the technical components of making this happen from your perspective?
Sure. Well, there's a couple things. Inside the software itself, you need to be able to like feature flag and turn things on or off and be able to actually send data to whatever system you're going to be using. So you need something inside there. So there's tools for that. Schematic is fantastic for that kind of stuff. So really good. The team is awesome and they do some really great stuff. So, and they're pretty young.
Okay.
So definitely recommend checking them out. But then the other one would be you need some kind of subscription billing management system on top. And so a lot of people will just use Stripe straight. And I believe Stripe is getting a lot better at their subscription management, but there are specific subscription management platforms that will sit on many different types of payment processors. So I would consider Stripe in this case to be kind of the payment processor. And so things like Maxio or ChargeBee, Ordway, I think there's a bunch of them. And their job is to help you manage the complexity of this. They let you build the SKUs and the products and what's in them and do metered billing. They do all kinds of different types of billing. They also have ways for your customer to interact and change their credit card and widgets and all that kind of stuff you can put right in your app. So I definitely recommend those types of systems. I personally have used Maxio, which used to be called Chargeify. So Chargeify became Maxio after it merged with SaaS Optics. Okay. And so I would say Maxio is probably the place I would start because that's the one I'm most familiar with.
I was going to ask you, do you have a recommendation between the three that you gave? Would you change your recommendation for the stage a company's at? Like, I think I heard that ChargeBee offers like a really, really amazing free tier or something, like up to $1 million or something.
I don't know. I'm not up on all of their pricing. It says the pricing guy. I probably should be, but I'm not up on all those things. But
you have a preference based on stage.
No, I think really these companies are going to be really good at self-selecting, right? So like the subscription companies, based on how they price, will be pretty obvious who they're going after. And so, I think that's where I would start is somewhere. But I mean, really, in the early days, some people might say it's overkill, but I'm a big fan of set out as you mean to go forward. And so if this is something you're going to have to do anyway, if you actually, reach your milestones, then I would almost want to start out as early as I can.
This earlier, in another completely different conversation today, I was saying I'm a big proponent of start building your infrastructure for your product, for your business, for your culture, all these different areas of your business. If you know that that's the direction you need to go in at some point to hit the milestone that you've already envisioned, do it in the early stage. Don't try to go back and audit and fix at a later stage.
Yeah, it's really difficult to unwind this if you do it early. The other one I would say a really important tool is any kind of feature usage measuring tool, an Amplitude.
Like Post-Hog or something.
Post-Hog, Amplitude, Mixpanel, Pendo, any of those. I don't know which one is the most effective for early stage. Maybe Post-Hog?
I love Post-Hog.
Yeah, I would say probably Post-Hog.
Yeah.
And I think Amplitude has they all have pretty good free tiers, I think. But that is going to be crucial.
Yes.
Not to sound like I'm AI or anything, but it's going to be crucial as we delve into these problems. But it's one of those things if you don't do, it's hard to, that is also hard because one of the most important things in pricing, it's like, okay, well, how many videos do your customers create? I don't know. Okay. Let's install something and let it run for 3 months and then we can come back and have some data. The earlier you can do that kind of stuff, just get it in there. You don't have to monitor every single little thing, but your big usage pieces, just keep monitoring those things and start getting data. Yeah. Data is, you can make data say whatever you want, but if you don't have it, there's no direction at all. At least with some data, you can start to have hypotheses about how things are going.
So it sounds, just to kind of recap some of the conversation here, in terms of steps, jobs to be done in the process of actually developing your pricing model and the early stage, let's say, earlier stages before you're up, so to speak. Sounds like step one is to understand your value metrics.
Yeah, I would say it's understand who you're selling to, like who your customer is.
Okay.
Understand the job to be done they're trying to get done, and then understand the value metric. Those are the three things that I would start with.
And then you can gather the data.
Yeah. And then, as early as possible, get the data in there. Because that's going to run, that's a sort of a long tail win. You do it now and it pays off later. And so that's how I look at those things. But yeah, if you're going to start off figuring out your pricing, start with who you're selling to, know your ICP, know the job to be done, and then pick the value metric. And if you can do those three things reasonably well, you'll be streets ahead of most people.
Let's talk a little bit about those who have dug their heels in and have the fear, and they have deeply ingrained an existing pricing model throughout their system and just, haven't been able to even attempt to explore making these changes because of the fear. What are some strategies or tactics that you think either founders or executives within the company can use to get the buy-in to start making these changes?
It's interesting because the opposite of the fear is confidence. Right. So how do we get them from the anxiety, I guess, of it all to feeling more confident about it?
Yes.
And I used to say that the confidence will come from data.
And
I still believe that to some extent.
Yep.
However, it's not enough. It's almost like when we're building a product and we're in a demo, and I'm a customer and I want to buy a piece of software and I'm in a demo and I can see how valuable it is and I kind of get it, but I don't fully trust it yet. Right. And so then I might use it and I get to that aha moment and I have value realization. But again, I haven't really adopted it fully. Right. But I get it. I can see the value of this now. You can start to feel it. And then through, customer success and all these other things that we do, we sort of get people to value adoption where they're using it all the time. So pricing is very similar. So if we were to develop a new pricing model, if say the person inside the company was like, look, we need to change our pricing, the best way to do that is with a small experiment. And so that they can get some confidence that changing pricing is going to go okay. And I would start with maybe running a small experiment. Say you're going to change some packaging around, or say you do come up with a whole new packaging structure. Test it with existing customers. They will be your best gauge. They want you to win, right? They don't want their price to go up. They don't want all those things. But at the end of the day, they will give you good feedback. And so I like to run what we call purchase simulation interviews, where we basically design new packaging and then we get a customer on the phone and we take them through the packaging. And you can just do it step by step. You first start with the packages, no prices. Then you start with the value metric, no prices. And then you introduce the prices and you go from there. So you can sort of see like, where would you end up? Which plan would you pick based on where you are? And then you introduce the value metric. Does this feel fair? Like, you ask those questions, and you can really get valuable information by sort of leading your customers down the garden path of a new proposed hypothetical pricing model. And that can give you a lot of confidence that, hey, this is actually going to be acceptable. And so that's one way to build the confidence. And that's another tool that maybe product managers or other people charged with maybe changing pricing can start to get buy-in around the company, is that, hey, we ran this experiment. We talked to 10 customers. This is what we found. The other way is that if you really want to get as close to the metal as you can, is you to pick your best sales reps and you give them a new packaging structure. You have the big conversation, you do it, and you have them use it with prospects and see how it goes, right? And then you're really validating with the market. The ultimate thing to validate pricing is to sell it. And so if you can sell it once, you can probably sell it again, but that will give you a bit more confidence. So that sort of starts the ball rolling on the confidence change. And that's sort of how I like to do it. The data side of it is like, look, if we change our prices and we do all the right work, this is how much revenue we're going to get. And this is how much we're going to reduce our discounting. And this is how, like, all those things are super valuable. I'm not discounting those things. They're very, very valuable in being able to get the buy-in for changing pricing. But sometimes you need to taste it before you know you like it. And so that's the big thing. So experimentation, I think, is the closest way to getting to understanding that we can change our prices, and our customers and the market will be okay with it. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but
no, it was. I have one more question about this, and it's from the customer perspective, as a customer who is a little bit of a, I don't know what you want to call me, but I use a lot of apps. Okay.
Sure.
Like I think last time I counted, we use like 75 apps. It's outrageous.
I have the same problem.
Yeah, I can't help myself. Oh, I can do, and I just, no. So when I am looking as a customer at a new product and I want to solve a specific problem. So I'm looking at, the top 3 ones that are referred to me or recommended, and somewhere I see other people recommending these softwares. So I compare like 3 softwares and I go to their pricing page and I do a price comparison. Okay. And the price comparison in my mind as a customer usually is who has the lowest price of the tiers. I don't generally even pay attention until I'm really ready to buy. I don't even pay attention to the other metrics or the add-ons and these types of things. The first thing I do is, okay, if I'm comparing 3 CRMs and they have a good, better, best set of pricing, I want to know, okay, who has if I know that I'm doing the middle tier, for example, then I'm going to say who has the lowest price of the middle tier. And then once I've kind of made my decision of who has the lowest price, then I might further explore that one option and really try to see, okay, what add-ons am I going to use? Or what are the other unit pricing? Like, what am I really going to end up paying here? But my question for you is this something that as a SaaS company, I should be at least positioning? Like, are you saying that you agree with having at least this good, better, best as the baseline always and just adding in the unit pricing? Or
no, I mean, there can be lots of different packaging structures. The most common in B2B SaaS is definitely good, better, best, because it balances optionality, which is basically the customer being able to choose where they want to be, and predictability for us, and simplicity. Like it really does. So it balances the act. But there are other models. So depending on the type of ERP systems, for example, are not good, better, best usually. Right? They're usually like a platform plus modules. Right? That's kind of how they work. Platform plus extensions approach. So there's lots of, and then like Amazon Web Services a la carte. You buy every individual service sort of individually.
Right.
So it really depends on where you're going. I would say from going back to your like price comparison idea, it brings up a really interesting point about competitors and just understanding. So as a SaaS company, it's our job to understand what's happening in the market and understand what our competitors are doing.
Right.
But it's not our job to copy our competitors.
Okay.
Because if we copy our competitors, then all we're doing is signaling to the market that we're not different and that we're just like everybody else. Right. And the other problem with copying competitors is you've assumed they figured it out, right? They're just like you and they're just figuring it out too. They're running experiments, they're doing things, they're scared of changing prices, they're all the things. So, run your own race, understand what the market will bear in terms of like what the competitive envelope is, what is the highest price in our market, what is the lowest price in our market, understanding those things, and then pick where you want to play. And I'm a big fan, and a lot of people, I get a little hate for this, but I'm like you, there are 2 choices. You're either kind of like the budget, best bang for the buck, or you're the best, right? Because playing in the middle, you get into this terrible kind of like comparison and, back and forth, and, you're kind of all the same and nobody's really taking a chance. So both are really good business models. The budget is a great business model, and so is the premium. They're just different ends of the market. And so I think it's really, really important to understand your competitors. I just think it's super important not to copy them. And at the beginning, it's super tempting. And I talked to a lot of founders who've made a lot of hay by copying their competitors, right? They make a lot of money doing it, but eventually they're like, well, I asked the question, how'd you start doing it? I had this conversation the other day. He goes, we threw darts at a dartboard and copied the competition, right?
100%. That's what most people are.
And now they're in it. Now they've hit their growth ceiling and they're trying to figure out how to get out of it. And that's fine. But like, that's when pricing can really shine. If you're like not growing anymore, like that's when pricing and packaging can really come in and you can differentiate yourselves. So someone like you who comes along and looks at, you pick the middle package. Okay. I mean, from a feature perspective, like I'm a little bit the opposite. I'm like, which one is the absolute best? And I start there. And then because I want what I want, I want the best experience. And then I go, oh, I can't really, that's not really how much I want to spend, because it brings up another thing, like what is expensive? Most things have a price and a cost, but to define something as expensive means that we're comparing it to something else. And so it's either something that's in our head that we already feel some kind of anchor around, like, wow, I'd never pay that for that thing because that's crazy. Or, well, it's 300% more than HubSpot. I'm not paying that. Like there's that. So you're comparing it against something. So it's really important to know what your customer would be comparing against too.
Yeah. I think my issue is the fact that I have too many damn apps. And if I didn't have so many apps, every time I'm buying a new app, I'm like, okay, Mia, you have so many apps. You have spending too much money on subscription. So I'm coming from this very budgetary thought period.
Yeah.
And I'm not thinking necessarily, maybe I should be focused on the value that it's delivering to do the thing. Instead, I'm like, okay, well, if it's really, really pivotal to my business and I don't already use it, then I'm going to have to get rid of something that I'm already using in order to do that. And that thing better be replacing some other tools that I'm using. Okay.
Well, now think about that problem though, but scale it up. Like think about a massive business that has hundreds of SaaS subscriptions. It's expensive. And, and what I mean by expensive, it's expensive as compared to like their headcount. It's expensive compared to their operational budgets, other line items in their budget. And so we really need to start thinking about those things as we scale our SaaS companies, because there's an upper limit about what companies will pay for a piece of software. It can't just scale limitlessly. It starts to feel like a tax and all those types of things. So yeah, like it's a really good point that, but yeah, you're like me. You have too many apps.
Yeah.
I'm like, ooh, shiny object that will change my life. I should buy that. And then, I just went through a process of sort of culling my SaaS subscriptions recently.
Yes, me too. It's just too many to even, it's just overwhelm at this point. I don't even know where to start of where to, but I guess what I do in that process is just like, what am I spending the most on? Start there. How can I cut the higher ones? I mean, the ones that are 20, 30, 40, $50 a month, $100 a month, even maybe I'm looking at those last, because there's other ones that are, $1,000 a month, and I gotta do something about that. Okay. Let's pivot to the conversation. So one of the things that is really on trend right now is this concept of founder-led growth, specifically around content creation, right? So I wanted to talk to everybody in season 7 about this idea and this question. AI, is what everybody's talking about, and AI can help founders scale content creation. They can help with all different types of growth in various functional areas of the business. And assisted content is becoming more common. We're all going on LinkedIn and email and SMS, and it's just like we're not talking to companies, we're talking to ChatGPT. ChatGPT is actually taking over the world, and it's communicating with all of us through or on behalf of all these other companies, right? But how do you think, or how do you recommend, either for you or for other founders, how do we leverage AI specifically to communicate and stand out, but still maintain that genuine, authentic connection, that human connection, and keep our brand story front and center with the audience? Do you have any thoughts or ideas about that?
Yeah, I mean, I've gone through this because I for a period of time, I worked with a friend of mine, and we sort of challenged each other to post every day on LinkedIn for, as long as we possibly could. And I did 90 days of it, I think. And it was great. It was a really interesting learning experience. But he said to me, he goes, I've never met anybody that has worked as hard not to write as you. Because I would use like AI tools to try and help me get my thoughts together and things like that. So the way I like to use them as thought partners, I really, you can, if you can craft a prompt and get your voice down, it can do a pretty good job, and then you can just edit. And I don't mind those, but I use it as a thought partner to help me unpack and get a cohesive story together about what it is that I'm trying to say. I used to do a bit more long form kind of content. So that's how I kind of approach it. And that's how I approach all AI generally. It's like, it's a good thought partner, and it can help me accomplish some things very quickly that I otherwise wouldn't be able to accomplish. Or like a lot of people, I'm a better editor than I am. Like when it comes to creating content, I'm much better at editing and going, no, I don't like that, versus going, what should it be? Right. So, and I think that comes with practice. I think I've gotten better. What I found was I sort of fell into like doing pricing page teardown videos on LinkedIn. And I absolutely love that. And I use AI there too, but not for the way you think. I use AI for the video editing part to make that easy and let me do it as a solo person. And in an hour and a half, I can go from, shooting the video to having it on LinkedIn and, being pretty great, or at least good enough. And so, yeah, so that's my thoughts on it. I do see a lot of people commenting on posts and things like that with clearly AI generated content, and you can just feel it. Like you can just almost feel it. It's like an open-ended sentence that doesn't really say anything. If you ever see those, it's like, I don't think too many people would take the time to write those things.
Something that is just not personalized.
Yeah. And that's
what's the word? It's not only not personalized, but specifically around the comments, it's not relevant. Mm-hmm. It's not value adding.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the lazy way. right? That's the lazy way of using AI. They're just pointing it at the things and saying, generate me a thing and do this stuff. It's about volume at that play, right? It's not about authenticity. And I would rather much go a lot smaller. Like even with cold outreach, I did a cold outreach campaign last year, and I handpicked every single SaaS company I wanted to go after, and I looked at their stuff and I crafted important emails, and I had a lot of conversations. It was fantastic because I took the time to do it. Is AI to help me? Absolutely. But it did not write the content fully and send it out. So, I'm sure if somebody goes through my LinkedIn and digs through, they're going to find the words crucial and delve and all the words that AI uses periodically in my posts because, we all learn and we all go through it. But I think to me, it's about getting your ideas out of your head and into something that can help you think through them. And so I think really it comes down to how you talk to it, as less about, hey, write me a blog post about this. It's more about how do I think through this? Like, help me be better. Is kind of how
Okay, one more thought on that. When you say that you're better editor, right? I think a lot of us are better at editing rather than the initial ideation of the post, right? Or the content. What are like 2 or 3 things that you look for in your editing process to take something that's AI generated to AI assisted humanized? That sounds like you. What are you looking for?
I'm always looking for would I say that? It's kind of the thing, would I actually say that? It might have the concept correct based on a transcript I gave it because oftentimes I'll sit in front of my computer and I'll just record my own Zoom, just me talking into the space, and I will give that to ChatGPT to try and help me get my thoughts together. So I look for tone of voice is really, really big. I look for, I guess it's just those patterns of saying things without saying anything. I kind of look for those things, and I sort of look for that. And then I look for brevity, I think.
Yep.
And I find most AIs just are far too verbose.
Totally.
They're far too ornate. They use words that we wouldn't probably normally use in our everyday. And so for me, I'm just like, look, write this like grade 9 English. This is what I want. Grade 9 English.
One thing I love to say is write this as if it was 2 friends sitting at a bar having a dinner conversation. About
approachable, friendly, approachable, down to earth is another good one. But I say don't be ornate, and that seems to really, really nail it. So there's all kinds of things like that. But the things I look for generally are like I'll just scrap ideas sometimes. I'll go like, I just can't get there with this. I need to come back to it, and or sometimes I'll just write it myself and have it sort of edit. Like it has given me enough that I go, okay, cool, I get it. I got the structure here. All right, let me just and I'll just give it like a stream of consciousness, and it will start to piece that together. I often tell it to use my syntax and tone. That often gets some things. It might get things a little too casual sometimes. So let's dig in, all these things. But yeah, I don't know. It's an evolving process for me because I will sit there and go down the rabbit hole for far too long. 30-line blog post or a 30-line LinkedIn post, I will spend far too long. Like you buy too many apps, I spend too much time trying to make something perfect. And when I realize, even when I do, I guess the one thing I will say is like, it doesn't have to be perfect. And if you think it's perfect, maybe a whole bunch of other people won't think it's perfect, and that's fine. But I've written some really great stuff that I thought was awesome and put out there, and nobody gave a shit.
Oh, isn't that heartbreaking?
And so I just,
eventually
I've stopped getting faster.
This is great. What are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes things you write, you have no idea that you think they're just off the cuff and not that great. And you use AI to polish it up a bit and you put it out there and people love it.
Yes.
You never really know.
We are so throwing spaghetti at the wall these days with just what it is that people want to see. It's really complicated. Okay, so what's one book, resource, or podcast that has profoundly impacted your perspective and mindset as a founder?
As a founder, hands down, X is easier than 2X. Dan Sullivan.
Yep.
Ben. Can't remember Ben's last name. I feel bad. But yeah, that book was a really nice retrospective. Like you read it and they talk about all these moments, and then you go back and do an audit of your own life and try and identify these 10X moments that will change things for you. I feel like being able to identify the moments in your life that were pivotal and really change the game for you will show you how far you've already come and just how much further you can go. And that to me was amazing. Gap in the Gain, Who Not How, 10X is easier than 2X. All of those are fantastic and have been super impactful for me.
Okay.
But yeah, just get through the Michelangelo story. I'm sorry, Ben, if you're listening to this. I don't know that story. It's just very complicated and hard to get through.
Yes. Where can everyone find you on social media?
Sure. I hang out on LinkedIn mostly. My handle almost everywhere is WDR Wilson. It's just my initials. But yeah, you can find me there, Bill Wilson, Pace Pricing. And I'm on periodically on Twitter, but less so, mostly on LinkedIn. And of course at pacepricing.com.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on this really enlightening conversation with Bill Wilson from Pace Pricing. We'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Mia.